right, what's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD interview. Every single week, we interview top entrepreneurs and just straight up top badasses that are out there dominating their space. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create epic, amazing, big lives for themselves and their families. So today, you guys, I got a good friend of mine, a guy that I've personally known for some time now, good friend of mine, kick-ass entrepreneur, kick-ass real estate agent. His business is expanding on a massive level. His team's exploding. So really stoked and honored. I have Jesse Loader on the show. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked, dude. So, as always, man, I like to dive into what you're doing today. I know you got a lot of stuff going on today. You're hiring a lot of teammates, and you guys are really expanding in a very tough market, right? Because, like, your market where you're at up in Canada is already in a real estate recession or has been for some time. But before we do that, dude, let's rewind the clocks, man. Let's talk about your journey that led to the real estate space in the first place.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so I was never one of those guys that was sort of a born entrepreneur, right? Like, I didn't have lemonade stands. I wasn't going out hustling when I was 10 years old or anything, but I was a terrible student all the way through school and high school and everything like that. And I never knew what I wanted to do when I grew up, and so when I finished high school, I kind of worked for a year just at some random jobs, decided maybe I was going to go be a cop. Didn't really know what I was going to do. I got into a college program. Basically, it was a program to go and be a police officer, and I did that for a couple of years. And again, was a terrible student in college. Still didn't know what I wanted to do, but at least I was doing something, and I guess that was good enough to satisfy my parents and all that along the way. But during that time, right before college, I bought a condo. I bought a townhouse, and I split it with my mom. I split the down payment with my mom, and I had all my friends, that lived with me pay my mortgage as I was going to college. So I never had to pay rent or anything like that. So that was pretty cool. And then, it went up quite a bit in value by the time I was done college, and I was able to refinance that and go buy another property. And then I bought another one with my brother. And so kind of along the way, I was sort of doing this real estate thing as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up, right? So anyways, then I graduated college, and I kind of stumbled into a job, and it was actually as a private investigator, which, I mean, when I tell people that, they kind of are like, what? Like, tell me more about that. You must have some crazy stories, right? And for the most part, man, it really wasn't that exciting. But for about 5 or 6 years, I was in that space doing the private investigator thing, and along the way, just sort of learning about real estate and what it can do for you, and more on the investment side of things, right? And so it's, and always in the back of my mind, I always kind of knew I wanted to do something with real estate. And it wasn't until 2011 that my wife actually convinced me to make the jump and go get my real estate license. So when that happened, we had one child already. We had about an 18-month-old daughter at the time. And my wife was actually pregnant with our second child. And so it was a big risk. Like, we didn't have a whole lot of savings or anything like that to kind of make this jump. And my wife at the time was working as a registered nurse. So she had a decent income and things like that. So at least we had that going for us. Anyways, so in 2011, I quit my job. I went for lunch with a few different realtors, and I decided that I was going to go work for one particular agent at the time who was a top producer and had been doing it for about 10, 15 years, something like that. So back then they actually had a physical real estate school around here anyway. They don't have it anymore. But so I went to school for about 2 months, and it only went till about 2:00 every day or so. And so the agent whose team I was joining, I was his assistant, part-time assistant, as I was going through school. And that was really great for me to sort of learn the business more so than the school. I mean, the school teaches you the contract law and how to fill out paperwork and to try and make sure you don't get sued, right? That's really what the school does. It doesn't teach you how to be a realtor, and it doesn't teach you how to be in business for yourself. So I learned a lot through being an assistant. So then anyways, that was right at the end of 2011. I got licensed right at the end, like December 15th or something like that of 2011. So I basically got started as a realtor January 2012, and that's kind of where it all started, I guess.
Yeah, no, I love that, dude. So, now with your I guess cop background, private investigating background, obviously, and you have to be very resourceful in those positions, probably especially the PI job, because I'm assuming the PI job is kind of similar to real estate, where you're an independent contractor. You got to go out there and get the business, and you got to be resourceful. How do you feel that prepared you for the real estate space, dude? Do you feel like that background prepared you, or like was it totally had nothing to do with preparation?
No, I think a lot of it actually translated over, and that's part of my listing presentation. Believe it or not, is I do talk about that. I mean, I think a lot of the yeah, like being on your own, and like you said, trying to be resourceful, trying to be creative, trying to come up with some different ways to do things. Um, and towards the end of my PI career, I was actually doing some overt investigations. So instead of sitting in the back of my car with a camera and being sneaky with everybody, we were actually doing some overt investigations where the person that I was sitting across from knew they were being investigated, and it was for insurance fraud. It was for stealing patents, breaking non-disclosure agreements, that kind of thing. And so through that, actually, that helped me a lot when it translated into real estate, because you really have to become the person you're sitting across from, right? You really have to find out what kind of a person they are, what their personality is like, and adjust how you talk and adjust the conversation to match them. And that obviously translates really well into real estate when you're dealing with other realtors who may or may not know what they're doing when you're trying to get a listing from somebody who's very different from you, different age demographic, gender demographic, whatever, right? So that's one thing that really translated well, and in fact I talk about in my listing presentations, and I think has helped me build up a pretty good book of business in a hurry.
Yep, love it, dude. So you jump in, you get licensed, and at the time you're as an assistant on the team. Did you keep once you got your license? Did you continue working on his team for some time, and before you went on your own, or how or once you got fully licensed, were you just like, I'm just gonna give this a shot on my own?
Yeah, so I was on his team for about 2 years. So I'm approaching my 5-year anniversary as a realtor here next month, and I've basically been on a team for 2 years. I was solo for 1 year, and then the last two I started my own team. So yeah, so for the first 2 years I was on his team, and it was interesting. I mean, it was the classic team model where the team leader was the rainmaker, right? And he brought in all the leads, handed them off to the team members, and away we went. And we did the legwork, and we split the commission. And I thought it was a really great way to get started. And I tell people that now. Like, I think it's a really great way to get going in the business. It gives you a lot of business in a short amount of time compared to doing it on your own. Like I think you said you sold 48 homes in your first year, right? I sold 48 homes in my first year too. The difference was I did it with a team member, right? You went and hustled that all yourself, but doing 48 deals in my first year, it did a couple things for me. I mean, well, it gave me a lot of experience in a short amount of time. It also put me on the map with other realtors, which I think is important. And I don't think it's talked about very much, that you need to have good relationships with other members of the industry in your area, right? And now we don't have such a saturation of realtors like you guys do down there, right? But like, we have a population base of about 1 million people, give or take, and we have like 3,500 realtors. It's not that bad, right? So we're pretty lucky up here that way. But people started noticing me like right away. I was kind of the team leader. It appeared to other agents that I was sort of his right hand man, and I was kind of his listing agent, right? And I think that helped me as well, as people respected me right away, and I think that helped in some negotiating situations and things like that. So yeah, that first year was definitely interesting. I mean, you take this big leap, right, and quit my job, and it was a decent paying job, and I had some future there, although I kind of saw the ceiling not too far above me. But you take this big leap, and you go it on your own, and you're trying to grind it out as a realtor, and most people fail, and you kind of know that going in, and you're really kind of worried about that in the back of your mind. But I just kind of put my head down and went with it, and decided to fully commit to being on the team and being that perfect team member, right? And I think it paid off. Now, there were definitely some challenges that first year. Obviously trying to learn the business, but on a personal side as well. I mentioned my wife was pregnant that year, and so in June 2012, so I'm talking about 6 months into really being in a brand new business, we had our son. Thought he was a healthy baby boy. Turned out that he had some pretty major issues. So for about 4 months, off and on, we were basically living in the children's hospital up here, the Stollery Hospital at the University of Alberta, and that was really tough on our family, obviously. So it would be, but it's just sort of one of those things where the stars kind of aligned. I mean, if I didn't make that jump and quit my corporate job and go out and do this on my own, I wouldn't have been able to be there for every single appointment when the doctors come around to see him in the morning, and all of his echoes and his surgeries, all that stuff. I wouldn't have been able to be there for that. I was able to be there every single morning at the hospital. I'd be working at his bedside sometimes and things like that. So it allowed me to have a better relationship with my son and my daughter and my wife during that really, really difficult time period. So, I mean, the first year was crazy, man, and still grinded out 48 deals, which was awesome, and it set me up for a really great start. But definitely didn't come without some challenges.
Yep. I love, man, hear that. So, all right, dude. So you're on his team for that 2 years, right? And then you go transition onto your own. At what point, because it sounds like things were going pretty damn good. You start breaking down, okay, your average realtor is maybe closing 6 deals a year, you're closing 48. What made you decide to go on your own? And then what were some of those initial challenges? Because we always sit there, when we see this when we're on teams, right? We're doing all the splits in our head, but we don't always understand the true costs. So what were maybe some of those initial challenges once you left that you were like, holy crap, I didn't expect this?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I probably have more respect for that team leader now than I even did at the time, because I'm in his shoes a little bit and I understand a little bit more. But yeah, so the reason why I decided to leave was at that time, and I can't remember the exact month or timeline of it, but I went and looked back at my last 20 deals. And my last 20 deals, only 4 of them came from the team leader, and 16 of them came through me procuring that 100% on my own. So I'm like, all right, well, this doesn't really work. And so we had talked about changing the split up a little bit, and maybe there's going to be an expanded role for me in the future, and things like that. But as we went along, it seemed more and more like that was lip service, and may not have actually happened. So I decided to leave and went out on my own. And yeah, I was. It was scary for the first little bit. So the first thing I did actually was I joined a coaching program, and it was okay. I mean, I know there's so many coaches out there and so much BS out there. The one that I belonged to was actually, I quite enjoyed it, and it got me a really good start. So it gave me a nice foundation, a nice base, pointed me in the right direction of this is how I should sort of start my business, because the way that we were doing business on the team was pretty traditional. I mean, he would send flyers out to 50,000 houses, and that would result in X amount of phone calls, which would result in a smaller amount of appointments and listings, and away you go, right? And that was really the only way that he could turn the taps on and off, was with doing the flyers, right? So, and it just it wasn't a fun way of doing business. It worked, but it was a lot of work for like you had to go on like there were some days I was going to like 7 listing presentations and I'd get 2 of them, because it just the way that the flyer that we were sending people was kind of deceiving, right? It was essentially, when you read it, it sounded like we had a buyer for that exact house, right? Like this is nothing new. There's so many realtors that do this kind of thing. Anyways, so when I went on my own, my coach got me set up on kind of a nice foundation of a referral-based marketing system, because at that time I had done, I don't know, probably 100 deals or something like that. I had a decent amount of past clients, and I really wasn't doing a whole lot to stay in touch with them. So they had me set up on that, and that's still how I do a large chunk of my business is through repeat and referrals, and just staying in touch with my past clients, right? Like it's super easy to do, really, when you think about it. So, but yeah, the challenges were, what I missed was the accountability. right? Like when I was on a team, it started out there was only a couple of us. By the time I left, there was 10 team members or something like that. It was a fast growing team, and then I think within about 8 to 10 months of me leaving, it was all gone. Right, that his team completely imploded. But yeah, I really miss having accountability and having like-minded people in such a tight-knit group that you can just bounce ideas off of. And then the cost, right? Like I underestimated the cost of what this would, what this would take. Like just the lock boxes and paying for photography and the signage and open house signs and all that kind of stuff. It definitely adds up, right? So, like I said, probably have more respect for him now than I even did at the time because I've gone through that. But it was just something I needed to do. I mean, I knew that I could go and do this on my own, and it was just a matter of time before I did that. But like I said, I'm forever grateful to my old teamer because he did give me a really great start in the business.
Yep, love it. So you talk about in your marketplace being less realtors, man.
Yeah.
I was kind of shocked when you talked about the barrier to entry of what it takes. I think it's
Yeah.
really cool. Like here in Arizona, I mean, you go to, I don't know, 40 hours of school, and yeah, I mean, they're spitting out 700 new realtors a month, and they're leaving as fast as they're getting in. But what's the barrier to entry where you guys are at?
10 grand, man. I mean, it's it's crazy. Like they don't, like I said, they don't have physical schools anymore, which I think is probably a good thing. It's all online and stuff. And but yeah, by the time you pay for everything, so all the courses, all the exams, criminal record check, all that kind of stuff, then you pass, then you go and join a brokerage, and then you have to pay all the board fees and everything. So once you're actually done the school, it's like another $3,000 that you have to pay to our local board just to be able to start shoving people in your car and showing houses. Like it's crazy. So, but hey, I mean, now that I'm licensed, I don't care because it does keep keep the realtors down, I think. And I also think that we have less of a fail rate up here than you guys do down there, but it's still really high. I mean, but look, like if it's going to cost you $1,000 to go and try this or 10 grand, right? You're probably a little more committed if it's going to be a $10,000 thing, and by the end of the day, so yeah, it is difficult. But like I know we talked about in Arizona, there, like the challenge of that is licensed assistants. I mean, if I go and get a licensed assistant, that's costing me $10,000, right? So it's pretty crazy, um, but yeah, so I don't know if that's ever going to change. I think that the one slight change they made recently, when I took it even 5 years ago, I had to take the rural real estate, course and exam. I had to take the commercial course and exam and things like that. You don't have to do that anymore, but because of that, they're losing money. So I think they just jacked up the fees on everything else. So yeah, look, man, it's everything. It's such a money grab, this business. We get nickel and dime to death in this industry, right? So that's just another one of those examples, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I hear that, dude. So, all right, man. So you're rocking and rolling, dude. You now are in your third year in the business. You went on your own. You're on your own only for a year, and then you start your
Mhm.
team. So walk us through how that happened, man. Like you're doing that year. You got this new coach. You're really hitting your past clients hard. At what point did you know that you need to start your own team? I mean, did you start it because you were bursting out the seams? Like what was going on at that point?
Yeah, I decided to start a team. I probably did it too early, quite honestly, looking back. However, I was losing business just because I had too many leads coming in. Because along the way, I mean, I guess to give this some context, I live in a small town of 30,000 people, right outside of a city of 1 million. Like it's like right next door. So along the way, I kind of accidentally farmed my own community through Facebook and that kind of thing. And it wasn't even intentional at the time. I'm a lot more intentional about it now since being introduced to you. So people just kind of started knowing me, around my community, and so I was getting all these leads coming in, and I wasn't, which turned into a lot of listings and which turned into a lot of sign calls, and I just couldn't handle them all. And so I was giving some of them away to some other agents in my office. But I'd give a lead to somebody, and I'd never hear from them again, or how it turned out, or anything like that. I never saw one referral check from one of those leads that first year. So I'm like, okay, well, this isn't working. Like, I need somebody where I have a little more control over, and they can do things kind of my way. And so that way I'm making sure I'm capturing some of this money that I'm just throwing out the window right now. So that was kind of the start of, okay, I need help, right? And of course, got an assistant at the time as well, because just the organization was all over the place. And so that first year of being on my own, and about the first 6 months of the following year when I started a team, was a really big learning curve on trying to figure out, like, I was my own website, all that kind of stuff got set up in the background. I was doing my own mailer program, things like that, right? So an assistant really helped me out through that as well. But yeah, eventually I just decided I needed to hire somebody to try and recoup some of the costs that I was just throwing away. So coincidentally, a friend of mine was getting his real estate license, and we had, we were pretty close friends. Like, I mean, I was invited to be in his wedding party. I didn't go to his wedding because of my son's hospitalization. However, like, we were close, is my point. And so I decided to, well, hey, why don't you come and help me out here? And it was really good because he knew that I was just sort of starting this team, and it was a little bit of a learning curve for me as well, and trying to figure out how to do this. So he was kind of my guinea pig, and he was really good with tolerating that at the beginning, I think, for sure. So that's kind of how the team started, and it's definitely changed a lot since then in a short amount of time. But that's how it all got started, anyways.
Yeah, let's talk about that, dude. Because I think a lot of team leaders, they'll start a team, and they'll start on a path, and they maybe discover it's the wrong path, but they feel like they're stuck. They feel like they can never make that change. And I know, just because we're good friends and we talk quite a bit. I know that you decided, hey man, that this isn't the, not that the team wasn't the path to go, but you realized that you need to make some shifts, and you chose to make those shifts, right? And make those adjustments. So at what point did you realize, hey man, we got to change our structure here? And then let's talk about that, right? Because, anytime we make a changes with our structure, you're going to lose some people, and, things like that happen. So at what point did you decide to switch that structure? Maybe walk us through why you made those changes and what you're doing now.
Sure. Well, listen, this is honestly super embarrassing for me to even talk about, because looking back on it now, I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking, basically? But I'm going to talk about it because other people should learn from my mistakes and not their own, right? So when I was on a team, it was 50-50, right? And when I decided to leave the team, I was, a big ego got in the way. It's like, well, I'm, this is not worth 50%. I'm out of here, right? So when I decided to start a team, I made an emotional decision to kind of go too far the other way. So here's the deal I had with my first two guys on my team. Both of them friends, by the way. Big mistake. Don't do that. So all I did was I charged them 25% of every single deal they did. And in return, I basically paid for everything. And I was training them and coaching them. And, I was paying for the photos, the signage, the lock boxes, the database, the website. I mean, everything, man. The Facebook ads, like all that, I was paying for that. And I was doing all the training and the coaching. And like, eventually I'm like, what am I doing this for? I mean, I could go and give this lead that I give to my team member that I have to put so much time, effort, and energy into. I'm going to get 25% out of that. Why don't I go give it to this guy down the hall who's a young, hungry agent? I'm still going to get 25% and I don't have to pay for shit. Like, what am I doing here? So, and originally it was just, the other side of this is I just really I like coaching. I like teaching people. Like, that's always been kind of a thing for me. I really like doing it. And so I didn't really mind it, but at some point it just didn't make sense financially. So I looked at my numbers, and I broke, and this is after I met you, Joshua. I mean, I broke down what I got paid per deal. And so in 2015, I did 94 transactions. I basically figured out that every time a team member sold a house for me, I lost $150 is what it worked out to be. And I'm like, holy shit. And that was a big eye opener. Now, buyers, it was a little different than listings. Listings cost a little bit more money, but I mean, I wasn't making money. So I had a conversation with them, and I said, listen, guys, like this isn't working for me anymore. Like they both, he gave me a 2-year commitment, right? This was only a year in. For one of the guys, it was less than a year. So I said, listen, this isn't working for me anymore. Here's why. I showed them the numbers. Of course, they don't believe the numbers, right? I mean, and I was the same way. When I was on a team, I didn't think there was as much value in the team leader as there really was, but whatever. So showed it to them and said, this isn't working for me. Here's how I have to change things, but I don't want to really hurt our friendship here. So I know that's not what you signed up for. So here's your out, right? If you want to go, go. And, and then originally they decided to stay. I was like, okay, great. And then like 3 weeks later, they had, in the meantime, went and planned their own thing and they left, right? Which was fine. I told them they could go, so they went. So then I kind of had to start from scratch, right? Through that transition, I had also hired on somebody else on a different split. And anyways, in the meantime, I now have three team members, as well as an assistant, and I'm looking to grow that by another 2 or 3 more, kind of by the spring.
So now that you've if you feel okay sharing this or comfortable sharing this, now that you've made those adjustments, what split structure have you went with? Because this is something that most team leaders get wrong, and it's because they go through the same situation that you went through. They don't know the true cost. Everybody thinks team leaders make all this money when the reality is most team leaders, their top agents on their team are netting more than the team leader. Right? Almost every case, dude, when I break down these numbers, and I see a lot of people's numbers that I help, that's usually the case, and I don't think people grasp that. So, have you went back to just that straight 50-50, or?
Well, I kind of modeled it a little bit after you. I mean, I do 50-50. Anything that I hand out to my team is a 50-50 lead, 50-50 commission split. Anything that they procure 100% on their own, and it has to be 100% on their own. So, like, for example, I have a community page in my city here where we go around and we talk to small businesses and just sort of give them a shout out, basically, on Facebook, right? And so any lead, and then I kind of have some of my team members help me out with that. If they get a lead from that, that's still me giving them something, right? Because I'm the one that's kind of housing this whole thing, right? So I'm pretty clear on what my leads are and what their leads are. But I mean, look, if Kathy is one of the women on my team, and she is a hockey mom, right? I mean, hey, we're Canadian, right? We everybody plays hockey, so if she's sitting down at the arena on a weekend and forms a relationship with another hockey mom and ends up listing her house, like that's 100% her. So in that situation, it's a 70-30 split, 70% in her favor. So I'm getting 30%, which really, like, I don't really make any money on that. Very little anyways, especially for listings. So, but like I said, eventually I do want to step out of this. I mean, I'm going to probably do about 150 transactions this year as a team, and I'm still selling about half of those. So as we go forward here, I really want to back out of that. And I know that my money's going to drastically drop when I do that. But so part of it is trying to retain some people a little bit. As I go forward here, I want to have, now whether it's these individuals on my team or it's somebody else I haven't even met yet, that's going to really step up and sort of run with things and show that they have the capability to be in a leadership role on the team. That's kind of my end goal here, is I'd like 1 or 2 people kind of step up and show me that they're the person to do that. So that's why I don't mind making less on something like that. It's hopefully a little bit of team member retention, and it also gives them a little bit of motivation to go out and do things on their own. I'll give you all the tools in the world to go out and I'll tell you how to do it, right? But if you're not going to do it, what are you doing? So that's how I do it. It's 50-50 on anything that was generated by the team, and then 70-30 if they do it completely on their own.
Yeah, I love that model. Obviously, it's the model that I follow as well. And in the 50-50, it's just a revolving door, man. You just always have people coming away. If you don't have some type of a progressive split plan, and I'll get criticized by other team leaders of like, why would you do that? I'm like, well, my retention's through the roof. Eventually, they're going to leave you, right? And they don't need as much time. They're not there. They know how to procure their business. And would I rather make, let's say, only $400 a deal or nothing? Right? And yeah, so I'm a big fan of that as well. So I want to
Yeah.
talk to you guys about your market, dude, because you
Okay.
guys are I mean, you're in a, and I'm assuming it's been a little while since we talked, but I'm assuming you're still in a recession up there, real estate recession. At what point did your market start to shift? And then how did you shift with it? Because you're out there cranking a ton of deals in a very difficult market.
Yeah. So, this is Alberta. I mean, it's oil country, right? I think that's even our hockey team's motto. Like it is oil country. So oil and gas obviously taking a big beating. Right outside of my city here is the largest industrial park in North America. It's a ghost town right now, right? So, yeah, it's taking a beating now. Edmonton is where I am. It hasn't. It's more insulated than even the rest of my province. So Calgary and Fort McMurray and places that are very very oil and gas driven have taken a bigger hit than we have around here. However, we have seen a decline, especially in the surrounding communities outside of Edmonton, which is where I live. In fact, my own personal city of Leduc, it has taken the biggest beating out of anywhere, which is awesome. I just moved into a brand new friggin' house. But anyways, um, yeah, so it's definitely taken a hit, and it's a buyer's market through and through. I mean, there's so much inventory available. I think we have about 10 months of inventory on the market. Like it's definitely a buyer's market, right? Now, prices haven't drastically dropped or anything like that around here. The latest stats just came out, and your average single family home today is worth just under 5% what it was a year ago. And so it's not horrible, right? Definitely not great. But look, yeah, it started to shift. Started to shift the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. Basically when oil slided, right? That's when the shift happened. But realistically, it was 4, 5, 6 months before that. It's like, okay, well, I'm sitting here in 2014, and in 2013, 2014, there's multiple offer deals all over the place. I list the house at 550. I'm selling it for 600. When you see that kind of stuff, you got to go, okay, this is not going to last forever. This is the top, right? Something is going to have to change. The media is not going to talk about it for another year, but this is going to happen. So you have to realize that, and you do have to shift. So one of the things, like now we're very different up in Canada compared to the US when it comes to, like, we don't have short sales and like foreclosures. It's a very different game up here. So that is going to be, foreclosures are going to be more prevalent over the next couple of years for sure. I mean, absolutely. So that's something that I'm focusing on as well. I have a colleague in Calgary, so the other kind of big city around here, who has a contract with a major insurer that is going to have a whole bunch of foreclosures in the next couple of years. So I'm working with him to try and get in on some of that business as well. But one of the things that I focused on was, well, two basic things. I started focusing more on buyers over the last little while. And the weird thing was, as soon as I started doing that, I'm like, okay, well, there's going to be more people buying because interest rates are still at an all-time low around here. So for a first-time home buyer, it's a wicked time to buy. Right? Interest rates are crazy low, and you have a ton of houses to choose from. Like it's awesome. So I started focusing more on buyers, and when I did that, I got way more listings too. Right? I mean, because nobody wakes up and wants to go and hire a realtor. If they want to make a housing change, if they want to sell their house, the first thing they do is they go look at stuff they want to buy, right? So when I started focusing on buyers, I ended up getting a ton of new listings. And then I also made a big push for builders. Like builders are famous for doing this. And like, again, I guess you have to understand our market too. There is this suburban sprawl happening here, like crazy. Like nobody's building up. Although our downtown is drastically changing, but there's this massive suburban sprawl, and there's all these new houses popping up like everywhere. It's crazy. So I started focusing more on builders. I was working a little bit with them in the past, but I made a really big push for that because they are famous for, just going crazy when the market's really well and not realizing that there's going to be a shift happening. So then all of a sudden, when the market tanks a little bit, they have all this inventory that they've already committed to or that they've already built that's just sitting there doing nothing. So currently I'm working with 4 different home builders here, and each one is a little bit of a different deal and a different program. But that's been a massive, massive change in my business. I'm helping them get rid of their inventory, which is great, all their spec homes and things like that. But the best part about it is I have these programs with two of them anyway, where like, look, they need to move all of this product, but anybody who's going to buy that, they have to sell something first, right? Because they're not first-time home buyer price ranges. These are all stuff that are 500-600 grand, where our average price is 400, right? So they're not a first-time home buyer house. They have something to sell. They have to sell that duplex or that condo or that small single-family home before they buy that. So then we're getting the builders to actively promote us to go, and so we actually go and sell that resale home. So it's been really great for our business, and they've helped us tremendously. So those two things, like focusing more on buyers and focusing on builders, and then right now making that shift into focusing a lot more onto the foreclosure business as well, because it's coming.
Yep. I love that, man. So, we get a lot of, I get on the podcast a lot of people that reach out that are, realtors up in Canada, and they're always like, well, Josh, you say to do this, this, and this, but things are done so differently here in Canada. I'm like, well, I work with a lot of realtors that are up in Canada, and things really aren't as different. There's, of course, some of the, you're not getting expired lists and able to maybe pound the phones in the same way. But let's give an idea of, okay, you talked about getting off these builders, but you also talked about some Facebook. So what are some of the things that you're doing that are working right now to get that buyer business?
So paid ads, first of all, I do some paid ads. However, like very minimal. Like people, when they see my stuff, they think I'm spending a ton of money. Like even other realtors are like, yeah, you're getting all these leads, but how much are you spending, right? And I don't even tell them, because they would probably freak out. Like I'm spending very little on paid ads, but they're generating me a ton of business in my community. So a little bit of paid ads. I'm like doing the Facebook squeeze pages that you talk about in your 90-day boot camp, and also getting my team members to do it as well. And those work. And maybe this is just, I think it's a little bit different market to market, but we've gotten in trouble quite a bit with doing that. However, it's still working. So we have to be a little bit choosier about when we do it, how often we do it, and which groups we do it to. But it still is definitely working for us. And then honestly, like I mentioned earlier, is that instead of farming a community with mailers and with door hangers and with door knocking and stuff like that, and bus benches and billboards, I did it on Facebook, and I get calls weekly like that they want to use my services. And when I ask them where, how they hear about me, it's just, I don't know. We just see you around. We just see you everywhere. So on every single one of my new listings that goes up, those listings get a paid ad as well on Facebook. So through the combination of doing just some general buyer targeted paid ads, every single one of my listings gets a paid ad. I'm starting to do some Facebook Live stuff on my business page, just being active in the community. We have all these rant and rave pages, so it's people that just can go on there and bitch about service they got at the restaurant or whatever, right? And I'm really active on there, recommending other people, talking about other businesses, giving them amazing reviews and things like that, answering people's questions when they have a question that maybe has something slightly to do with real estate. Just interaction with people online on Facebook. And then, like I said, I started these community pages. So I have a Edmonton Real Estate, Leduc Real Estate, and Wetaskiwin Real Estate page that I manage on Facebook myself, and my team members help me out with that, obviously. And so it's just a spot where we can go in there and talk about very like hyper local stats about that particular area with the people. And like, I get people that call me and say like, hey, we've been listed with so-and-so for 90 days. I watched one of your videos and they've never given me that much information. Can you come list our house? Like they literally told me that. So it's just giving people value, right? And Facebook is an amazing platform to be able to do that. So yeah, just being out there in the community. And now we're doing this thing, like I said, where we're interviewing local businesses. And I just did one the other day at it's called Floating Oasis. It's a sensory deprivation tank float therapy store. And so I did an interview. It was like a 5-10 minute interview, posted that up on my page. I did a boosted ad of $5, $1 a day for 5 days, and like 3,000 people in a community of 30 saw that, and like, it's just, and I never talked about real estate once.
Yeah.
And people know what I do around here already, right? So I don't even need to talk about it, and they know what I do. They even know what some of my team members and what they do. Like, we have a little bit of recognition in a small community. It doesn't really take long, right? So yeah, like Facebook is this massive thing, and there's a couple different income streams, revenue streams within Facebook, but it's been massive. Like, I'll make 200 grand off of Facebook this year.
Yep, that's killer, man. I love it. So, all right, dude. So you've got all these new Facebook leads coming in. You got all these new builder business. And I know you talked a lot about, or you talked in the beginning about being very intentional about your past clients and not neglecting those. Because we see that's where we see so many real estate agents neglect that, right? So how do you keep it all together? How do you stay organized with all this stuff? Because you got all these new leads that you're having to follow up with. You got all this business that you got to stay on top of and keep up with all of your past clients. So again, how do you keep it all together? And then can you give us some examples of what you do to stay in touch with your past clients so you're not neglecting them?
Sure. Perfect storm, baby. I mean, like, give you a free plug. I mean, the Perfect Storm CRM obviously just came out, and I'm still learning it a little bit, right? But look, systems, right? Systems is the bottom line. So when I went on my own, I went and I got Top Producer, and then I hated it, and I went and got something else, and that sucked too, and then I went back to Top Producer. But look, you just have to have some systems in place. So when I get a lead in, it gets put on a drip system in Perfect Storm. And what I love about Perfect Storm, which I wasn't, it wasn't being done on Top Producer for me, is like, somebody comes and registers on my website, my Perfect Storm website also. Like, it's automatic, it's instant. Like, within like 20 seconds, they're getting an SMS text, and they're getting an email, and away they go for 1,000 days, right? And so that's great. Like, the more automation that I can have in my life, the better. So systems is a big thing. And same with past clients. I mean, it's all like, and the $1 Million Real Estate Agent book, it's all about how many touches. And I think he talks about 33 or whatever it is, right? In that book. But yeah, I don't even know how many touches exactly I'm doing, but here's a quick rundown of it. Quarterly phone calls. I mean, that's big. Like, I have people that when they pick up the phone, they're like, "Hey man, what's going on? This is your quarterly call, right?" Like, yeah, what's going on? How's the house? How's the new dog? Blah, 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 whatever. I'm just saying hi, seeing how it's going. And then asking, this is the important part, is asking for referrals. So I don't ask them. I'm not asking them, "Hey, do you want to sell your house yet? You've been there for 3 years. Like, it's probably time to move," right? Like, I'm asking them, listen, obviously, look, I tell you this speech 4 times a year, but obviously that a big part of my business is on referrals. So do you know of anybody who's thinking about buying or selling real estate in the next 6 months? And most of the time they say no, right? But it's just staying in touch with them, keeping top of mind with them. So a quarterly phone call. They used to get a monthly physical newsletter. I've stopped doing that now, and they get an email with a video market update. I just did my latest one a couple days ago, and they get an anniversary card on the day that they moved in. They get a Mother's Day and a Father's Day card. And if they don't have kids, then I do the Christmas thing. I try not to do Christmas because everybody does Christmas. They get a comparative market analysis every 6 months on their house, and that's automated. We switched our MLS system recently, about a year ago, I guess now, and it's way better than the old one. And so I can set it up automatically so that every 6 months, every single one of my past clients gets a CMA of their house. Like, it's awesome. I don't even have to do it. I used to pick like 20 clients and do like a really in-depth hard copy and like go deliver it. And that's probably more powerful, to be honest with you. But now it's every single one of my past clients. Every 6 months, they're going to get a CMA on what their house could potentially be worth. And it has a thing in there saying, like, listen, here's a quick rundown of everything that's sold in your immediate area of the last 6 months. This may not be exactly like your house, but this just kind of gives you a rough idea. If you have any questions about this, let me know, right? That's the basic idea of it. And then I'm trying to think on the fly here. What else? Video text messages. Those have been huge for me. So that's not as systematized as I would like it to be. But whenever I'm driving around the city, showing houses to somebody or whatever, even if I'm out with my family, I always drive. I remember that so-and-so, I sold them a house over there. So I'll just shoot them a quick video text message. Be like, hey man, I was in the area, drove by your house, just thinking about you. Hope you're having an awesome day. Whatever, just saying hi, right? So the video text messages have been, I've gotten a tremendous response out of those. Actually, nobody sends me a video text message back, right? Everybody's scared to do video, but everybody responds to them. Very few people respond to that voicemail that I leave them for my quarterly phone call, right? And then your thing, right, is completely rip this off from you, is doing the Monday motivation emails and the Friday what's happening. So I do those on several different platforms. I put them onto my business Facebook page, and they also get sent out in a mass email, not only to my past clients, but everybody who's in the system, right? So again, it's just another reason for me to be in front of their face. So I don't know how many touches that is, but it's probably more than 33. So
yeah. What I love about it is because you get to a point where you get you it just happens, right? You sell enough homes, you get enough past clients where the whole pop by or the taking people to coffee or the client events, kind of comes to a point where it's just not sustainable. But with systems, with technology, and I think people today are just so busy. Like, dude, our clients don't want to meet us for coffee no more than we want to meet that. You know what I mean?
exactly.
I love it, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, like I know that there's all sorts of different coaches out there, and like the Buffini way of doing things is the Popeye and stuff. And I've never taken his training, so I can't really speak to that. But yeah, look, I'm an introverted guy, and that's just not me, right? And that's something I learned early on too. Is when I first started this business, my team leader was very he was the idea man. He was really creative, and he was out there, and he was always talking to people. And this is not my personality. And so after a couple of months, I really learned that, okay, well, I can take some of his ideas and kind of mold them to me. And as soon as I did that, man, everything exploded. So yeah, you have to do things what works for you. But yeah, the whole meeting with people, I very rarely do that. I'll go and meet with vendors and lenders and things like that in order to have a business relationship. But the whole past client thing is something that just doesn't work for me face to face often. Although I am going to start doing some client appreciation events. That's something that's on my books for 2017, and it's going to start with two events this winter. One, I'm going to do a movie theater type thing. So I haven't decided which one yet, but with one of the kids movies that comes out sometime over the winter, I'm going to rent out one of the theaters on a Sunday and pay for a bunch of tickets and popcorn and stuff like that. And then we're going to do a skating night, probably in January, where on one of the outdoor skating rinks here, we'll just kind of do a really informal event and get a bunch of hot chocolate and stuff like that. Something very family oriented, right? Like that's kind of my demographic is young families, and that's primarily who I help. So
yeah, I love it, and those are scalable too, right? So it's makes sense. So all right, dude. So I know that you're out there growing this team. You're selling a lot of homes, but you also have a young family, dude. And that becomes a big challenge for a lot of people. So much of our success in this business has nothing to do with the actual business, right? It's being able to kind of keep mentally strong and stay balanced, and we operate in these extremes, and it's hard to keep it all together, dude. So how do you because I know you're very intentional with this, and being at home certain nights and making sure that you're not neglecting your family or your health, and walk us through some of the things that you do to be successful with that, so you're not neglecting those things.
For sure. So I think the first step in that is to get your partner on board. A big shift in my life was when I hired my wife. She was my assistant for 18 months or so. And sure, there was days we probably wanted to kill each other, and then we still have to see each other all night too, right? But it really helped her understand, I think, my business and the demand that people put on me. And so that really helped, is that she kind of got to see a glimpse of my world. And I think that shifted her mindset a little bit too. So that was when you got to get your partner on board with this, right? And one thing I did pretty early on actually was I set some pretty strict parameters on when I was going to be working in those sort of non-traditional hours, evenings and weekends, right? So a few years ago, I decided that I'm only going to work the maximum 3 evenings per week and only 1 day on the weekend. And I've held true to that for a few years now. In fact, honestly, this year, with the odd 2-3 week stretch in the spring, I'm probably only working 1 or 2 nights a week at the most. And there's been lots of times when I'm getting the entire weekend off. I went to Europe for 3 weeks. We've been to the mountains for the weekend several times. Like it's been one of those years where there was a ton of growth and my business grew, but it's almost unmeasurable how much it grew when I consider how much less time I'm spending in it, if that makes sense. And so yeah, get your wife on board. Set some parameters, and you have to do this with your clients as well. You have to manage your clients' expectations. When I'm sitting down with a new buyer in my buyer consultation, I talk about that. I'm like, listen, here's the evenings that I work. Now I'm very flexible, and as long as we have a couple days notice, I can pretty much make anything happen. But here's what I work, and here's why I have these parameters. Because I have a 6 and a 4-year-old, and they have extracurricular activities, and I want a relationship with my wife. I don't want to be an absentee father. And when I talk about that with people, they respect that. Like, they totally respect that. And the other thing is, like, in my phone, I put right on my calendar on the days I have off, like, it's actually blocked off with an appointment. My appointment is just family time, but if it's in my phone, that's what it is. So then when somebody calls me up and I forget the days, or I get the days mixed up, and I look at my phone and go, no, sorry, I can't do tomorrow. I already have an appointment then. They don't know what the appointment is, right? It's going to watch my daughter figure skate, right? Whatever. So, and the other thing is to try and keep sane with it. I mean, like you said, I am intentional about this, and this has been a big shift in my life this year, is becoming more intentional about this. And because there is such a demand on us that it can be very easy to get caught up in the stress and let it affect you. So a few of the things I've done to help curb that is getting up early, right? I mean, it's 6:30 in the morning here, whatever it is now, and I've been up for quite a while already. And I'm not crazy like you. I can't do 3, man. Like, this just, I can't do it. But getting up early, getting a ton of stuff out of the way first, your must-do activities out of the way first. Meditation's been huge. My wife's actually a certified meditation instructor, and that's kind of how I got involved in it, obviously. And that's been a massive part of my life. So, I mean, look, I work way too friggin' hard to just squirrel away all this money and never do anything with it, and not have a relationship with my family or my friends. You know what I mean? So I still play hockey every week. You know what I mean? Like, I still, like, those things are important to me, and relationships with a few of my friends are really important to me. So, like I said, I work way too hard to give up on all that. So, but you just have to kind of set those parameters right from the beginning, manage your clients' expectations, and stick to it, and put your family first, and I think your business will grow.
Yep, I love it, dude. Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. You know, I was freaked out when I got intentional about my schedule, because I like a lot of realtors, I think, we're like, oh, our clients love us because we're always available. You know, but then when you break it down, do people want to work with successful, busy people, and they understand that? Now, they're not going to wait 3 weeks for you, but they'll wait 2 days. If you're like, oh, no, I can't meet that night, I've got an appointment. They don't need to know it's with your kids, like you said. I don't have Thursday night, but I've got Friday at this time. Does that work, right? And yeah, I love it, bro. And yeah, you can't, in a reactive state, you can't have a growing, sustainable business. It just ain't gonna happen. So let's talk about your self-development, dude, because you're obviously a dude that's staying up with the times. We're really in this dinosaur industry. Like, I know for me, my real estate business started really expanding when I opened up companies in other spaces, and I really realized, like, how far behind we are in this industry. So, like, what kind of things are you doing for your own personal self-development and personal growth? Is that something that you're doing daily? Because you're a dude that obviously is evolving, staying ahead of the curve. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I would go through stretches of being really, consistent with getting up early and go to the gym and eating pretty clean and all that. And then I would fall off the tracks. And then obviously that's really common. But eventually I'm just like, man, like, why would I try and continue to just be like everybody else who works out for a while, or who gets up early for a while, who meditates for a while and then fall off the tracks? Like, no, I don't want to be like everybody else. So I'm going to get intentional with this, and I'm going to stick to it. And so I did I put it out there to the public, and I did a 30-day Instagram sort of a 30-day challenge where And I was up at 5 a.m. every single day, and I made sure I had to do a video of that every single day, and I was doing everything. And so that really helped me kind of get over the hump of it. But as far as my personal development goes, like I do love to read. Audiobooks have been great. And then podcast, audiobook, and physical books. That's a huge part of my, like, every day I'm doing something with that. There's not a day that goes by when I don't. The formats change a little bit, but like I'm in my car, and like even my kids know that, like, it's just talk. Like, I rarely listen to music. You know what I mean? It's an audiobook, it's a podcast, whatever. So I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to grow. Meditation has been huge. I when I first started doing meditation, I would do it in a reactive state. So I'd get all stressed out, and I'd go and I'd sit in my car and I'd sit quietly for 5 minutes and I'd do some meditation or do it at home or wherever, because the day just takes you all these crazy twists and turns, right? But then I started doing it every day, and now I've started to do it twice a day, and so it just puts you in a more proactive state of mind, so that when you get stressed out, when you get angry, when there's something that affects you, now your mind's first instinct is to kind of do the calming thing instead of doing the reactive thing, right? So that's been really great for me, and honestly, just being intentional about being a better person. Like, dude, I was an angry dude. For a long time, and I, like, look, I still have a temper, but it was one of those things where, like, one day you just decided, like, what am I doing here? You got to stop doing this, and that's something that has nothing to do with real estate, but it all ties together, right? All these aspects of your life tie together. So all this personal development is going to help me be a better person. It's going to help me be a better husband and a better father. And through doing that, you can get more intentional about your real estate business and watch it explode, right? Like, it's all tied together.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I couldn't agree more, dude. It's kind of weird how once we get intentional, every aspect of our life grows, on just almost like an exponential level. When it comes to self-development, dude, because we're in this era of like overconsumption of information, right? Like, you become obese by an overconsumption of food. Well, we have like so much information being thrown at us, and it's easy to get consumed with all of these books. But how do you know if you're reading like the right book? Do you have a reflection process where, like, you go through to make sure that you're reading the right things at the right time to allow you to grow?
Yeah, dude, I'm so glad you asked me that, because I don't know if I've ever been asked that before. I mean, when I'm going through a book, and if I'm a quarter way through, halfway through, and it's not inspiring me to throw that thing down and go and do something and write something down and write down these ideas and get those creative juices flowing, I throw that shit away. I mean, there's all these books out there that, I mean, look, they all say the same thing. It's all trying to motivate you and pump you up, and different sales tactics and all that kind of thing. But if it's not giving me inspiration to go and create and to go and do things and to get off my ass and like you said, like, be annoyed with having to go to sleep, it's not the book for me. There's so much out there, right? And yeah, you can get just bogged down in anything. And same with the audiobooks, you know what I mean? So my kind of test for audiobooks, like when I'm listening to an audiobook at the gym or something like that, it's a little hard to concentrate when you're at the gym, right? But if it's not inspiring me to work out harder, to go longer, or like I said, to get those creative juices, I always bring a notebook with me as well to the gym. And if it's not inspiring me to write stuff down or to really think differently about my business, about my life, about a relationship, then it's not really the book for me. And I have become choosier about that. So I take people's recommendations, I write them all down. I have a massive list in my phone about books that I think I should read. But I don't give it very long before I move on to the next one, because there's so much out there, right? That you want to make sure you want to make sure you're doing the right personal development. Some is better than nothing, but eventually you have to start honing it in a little bit to make sure that you're getting the right information for you in your life.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love the audiobook at the gym too, but you got to be careful too, man. Like, I've literally been there, I'm all sitting in there slaying weights, and all of a sudden, like, I'm like tearing up because this audiobook like strikes a chord. Yeah. I'm like cranking on biceps, and then like I'm getting all like teary eyed. I'm like, oh fuck, I can't be doing this, dude. um, yeah, so I love it, dude. So, all right, dude, if you could go back today, like knowing what you know now, because obviously, man, you've grown so much in your just your career and your life over the last, 4 years, let's say, since your real estate career started. If you could go back in time and give yourself like two or three pieces of advice, knowing what you know now today, go back to like right when you got it done with real estate school, what would that be?
That's a great question. I think one of the things that I learned, like I said, probably my second year of real estate, was that is to quit constant. Oh, you shouldn't only go after new business. Like obviously, when you first start out, that's all you got, right? Is you got to just completely go out and find new business. But take care of your clients, man. That because I have very few people in my first year in real estate that I even know their name or phone number or anything. Like I just don't have the information anywhere. And I wish I did, because there was a lot of really good relationships there and a lot of people who helped me without them even knowing they helped me, right, through my first year. And so I wish that I'd do that. So, but it was just, that was it. And that was just the mentality of that team, is to continually go after brand new business all the time. Just pick that low hanging fruit. Don't take care of your clients. So now, however, if you're a brand new agent, like the number one thing to do is just to get yourself out there. Go and start talking to everybody you possibly can. And if you're like me and you're an introvert and that's just really not your thing, who gives a shit, man? If you're new, that's something you have to do. You have to get out there and you have to talk to people. Talk to people in line at Starbucks, like wherever. Right? You just have to talk to everybody and be involved in your community. When people start seeing that you're giving value, it'll get reciprocated to you tenfold, right? So, and I think if I would have done that earlier on in my career, it would be even bigger now. But and from real estate aside, it's just, dude, calm down. like that would be the advice that I would give to myself. I mean, because I can't be the only one out there like this, where I was just really high strung, really stressed out, and I would take things out on other people in my life when they had nothing to do with it, including clients, right? Like you just feel pissed off about something and you take it out on your clients, maybe inadvertently or without you even really knowing. And then all of a sudden that relationship goes south and you're wondering why, right? Like I was a really high strung, angry dude. And I would just, and I wish that I had identified that earlier. So, because like we talked about earlier, everything's so tied together. So I think if I would have been more content and happier with where I was in my life then, that would have helped my real estate business. And if I was more content and happier in my real estate business, that would help my personal life. It's just that it's all connected, right? So I think those are probably the two things that I would go back and tell Jesse of 2011.
Yeah. I heard a quote one time that was something like, "Don't take life too serious. You're not going to get out of it alive anyway," or something like that. Right? Because
yeah, I've heard that too. So true, right? Like, I mean, I know we hear it all the time that like you only have one life. Life is short. Don't waste it. But that's something I've really taken seriously lately. I mean, this is like, we are not here for very long, man. And I would much rather be happier and living the fullest life possible than just going through, like, I know you always talk about too, mediocrity. That's one of the things that I learned from you, and I had never really given that word much thought until I met you. And mediocrity, like, it's like, I want nothing to do with that. I want nothing to do with mediocrity. And so that's constantly why I'm trying to level up and be a better person, because I want nothing to do with mediocrity. I want amazing things. I want to be able to do stuff that most people only dream about doing. So
yeah. So speaking of that, and how are you doing on time, man? I know we're going a little longer than the hour. Are you okay? I don't know if you have a
yeah, no, I'm cool, man. Don't worry about
it. Okay.
Yeah.
So when it comes to mediocrity, dude, because this is something that a lot of people struggle with, and I know you've leveled up so much in the last 4 years and continue leveling up, and it becomes a I don't think people always understand how lonely leveling up in entrepreneurship and success can be, because you get to a point where really your circle that you've grown up with doesn't relate to you, and you kind of don't relate to them, and you don't even really enjoy being with whatever. Like how do you do that as you're leveling up? I mean, how are you being intentional and handling that, like with the people in your world, and communicating that, and deciding when to give people the X, and reaching up for those friends?
Yeah, man. Honestly, I was just having this conversation with my wife last night, and there are some challenges in our life right now with certain relationships because of that. My wife is doing her own thing and leveling up in her own world, and and I'm trying to do that as well. So yeah, it's difficult. And I come from a very blue collar redneck area, right? And like, it's very different when you start kind of separating from that mentality. Like I'm not saying anybody's better than anybody else, but there's just different mentalities. And I've noticed along the way, and when I'm being so out there on social media and putting myself out there, I've definitely lost people along the way. Some of them intentionally, and some of them is just kind of like you just let them go, right? It is difficult though. I mean, you grow up with this set of friends, and I haven't strayed too far from where I grew up, and people change so much. But I think what's really helped me is that my wife is on the same page as me. We both want these things. Our goals are aligned. Like we have a plan to move to a certain place within a certain time frame, and like, our goals are aligned. So if our goals are aligned, that's kind of all that matters, right? And we can. The people who are really close to us and our true friends will come along for the ride, and if they don't, they don't. We have to remember what our true goals are, and those goals didn't say, and we're still going to be friends with X in 2020, right? It didn't say that. This is what our goal said. Do you still want this? This is what we need to do, right? So that's something I've been more intentional about as well, is when I'm making those decisions to go and do this, when I'm making a decision to interact with this person, is that, do these get me closer to my goals or not? That's something that I'm stopping myself more talking about and figuring out whether or not I want to do that. But yeah, it is always difficult. And this is a lonely business to begin with, and then when you are trying to level up and other people around you might not be, it can be very lonely. So I think it's good if you have, like I said, the easiest way to do is if your partner's on board, and if you don't have a partner, if you're just single, like, just keep those goals. Just always think about those goals, write them down every single day, think about them every single day, so that you don't stray too far off of that path.
Yep, love it, man. So, you talk about books. Do you have any I always hate when I get this question, because there's so many great books for so many great topics. So even though I hate the question, I'm going to ask it. So do you
I knew you were going to ask me that. I wrote some down. So
I know we're rounding out 2016 here. Do you have any, whether it's top reads that you've read that have impacted your life, or top reads this year? Do you have any, a few recommendations that you'd give our audience?
Well, look, I'm not going to say anything earth-shattering here that probably nobody's heard about, but a couple. Well, okay, Rich Dad Poor Dad was kind of what got this whole mentality started with me, and this was from my parents. My parents were entrepreneurs growing up, and they were involved in real estate, back in the day as well. So Rich Dad Poor Dad was one that put me in that mindset of, make your money work for you, as opposed to the other way around, right? So obviously that's a really great book. The one thing that I really like, the one thing by Gary Keller, is for years I didn't know what the hell my thing was. I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. I didn't have any goals. Like even when I first got into real estate, it was like, oh, I want to make $100,000. All right, well then that happened several months later. Now what? I didn't have anything after that. I was lost. I was just kind of wandering through this aimlessly. So Gary Keller's one thing really helped me kind of establish and get me more focused in on the bigger picture, while and always maintaining that one thing in your mind. Why am I doing this, right? And be intentional about getting there. And of course, you stray off the path every now and then, but that's one that definitely helped me as well. 10X. I mean, Grant Cardone. I'm actually not the hugest fan of Grant Cardone, but his 10X is awesome. Like, I mean, it's a fantastic book. I mean, man, there's so Miracle Morning, Hal Enrod. That one's really great as well. When you talked about, doing some bicep curls and crying like a little baby, that was one of the books that got me going, and I happened to be listening to that at the gym too. So that's definitely another one on my list.
Yeah, love it, man, love it. So, I started this podcast, dude. It's about 18 months ago, roughly, and I started because I used to just bitch and moan and whine about all the smoke and mirrors in this industry and how, most people are just full of crap, whether it's even some of the top coaches and trainers or realtors. It's such an egocentric business, and a lot of people, again, man, there's so many smoke and mirrors. I actually was going to call the podcast. It was going to be Joshua Smith, Keeping It Real, No Smoke and Mirrors. And I found out there was another Keeping It Real podcast, so we had to scratch that.
Oh, yeah.
But
That would have
anyway,
been good, though.
so I decided to start this, and I was like, instead of bitching and whining, dude, let me go out there and just interview the doers. Dudes like yourself that are in the trenches, that are actually out there building great businesses, overcoming obstacles, overcoming adversity. So that being said, of course, our listeners are here to learn and grow from you because they want to be able to go out there and create an epic business like you've been able to create. So do you have any last pieces of words of advice or inspiration that you'd like to leave those watching and listening right now so they can go out there and create the life they know they want and deserve?
Well, look, real estate aside, I think that every entrepreneur or any person who's self-employed or wants something bigger, anybody who doesn't want to live in mediocrity, you have to be intentional about what you want. You have to figure out what you want first. You need clarity. That is the number one most important thing. You need clarity on what you want, and that's a hell of a lot easier said than done. It can take a long time to figure out what that is, right? But once you do it, and once you have it, once you know it, now you can create the path to get there. That's first and foremost, and that's nothing to do with real estate. That's just in life. Real estate wise, like in my opinion, I think you need several different arms of revenue streams to your business. Like I have my past clients and my referral based marketing system. You need to have that systematized. I don't know if that's a word, but you need to have systems for that to ensure that you're always staying in touch with your past clients, because that's just, if you nurture that, you're always going to have business that's relatively cheap to acquire. But you also need other revenue streams as well, and that's where the Facebook stuff comes in, all the online lead generation, the for sale by owners, whatever. You need a few different streams. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Even within the real estate industry, you should spread it out a little bit, but not too thin, right? You do a few things really, really well. Just don't stick to one thing. There's so many realtors out there that, like if there's a realtor out there that's just doing Facebook right now, Facebook's going to go away at some point, right? And we're going to be on to the next thing. Whatever it is, the newest thing out there, if you're only doing that, if you're only doing a referral marketing system, in my opinion, that has a ceiling. You're never going to smash through that next level unless you start bringing in some more tools into your business.
Yep, love it. Powerful words. And those watch and listen, I know I end every podcast with this, you guys, but information without implementation is truly just the start of delusion. Information is not power. It's taking that information, taking action on it that creates power in your world. So Jesse just over an hour of just knowledge drops, dude, right? So take something that you learned today, something that Jesse shared with you, go out there, take immediate action on it. Don't wait. Go out there and take action right now, so you can go out there and create the life that you know you want and deserve. And Jesse, dude, I know it's early 6 a.m. For both of us, man. I appreciate you being here, dude. This has been an awesome interview, bro, and really appreciate and honor you, dude, and hoping to see you down here in Phoenix in April, bro.
Absolutely, man. It's been a true honor. You were a mentor of mine. Thank you so much for having me on. And I'm going to be in Scottsdale in April for my brother's wedding, the same week, man. So I'm going to come by and say hi for sure.
Yep. All right. Sounds good, brother. Well, take care, you guys. And thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.